Hello everyone and welcome to this special event this afternoon at the WCG as the WCG take on the Sydney Barmy Army on a glorious day here in Sydney. Fresh from watching the motherland get walloped 4-0 in the recent Ashes series, the Sydney Barmy Army thought fuck it, we may as well make it 5. This match was scheduled for earlier in the month but was postponed thanks to the recent pandemic, but we're ready to go now. Is that Steve Waugh? Yeah, it sure is. The former Australian skipper was a special guest at the WCG today, helping the home side win the toss, and the WCG would elect to bat on a warm Sydney morning. So the Barmy Army began to contemplate what looked a long day in the field ahead as the skipper Tony Emerson went over some last minute instructions. But the morning would begin brilliantly for the Barmy Army. It took an Aussie, Mike from MOSH, to get the first wicket. Young Nathan Hancock dismissed in the first over, dismissed for a duck. But that would bring young Riley Cornforth to the crease at number 2, and he began to dispatch some poor Barmy Army bowling. The youngster finally getting the rewards he deserved in the longer format, hammering some sometimes good and often poor bowling from the Barmy Army on his way to his first half century at the G. The youngster would hit 7 4s and 5 6s on his way to 60, and the Barmy Army, having picked up the early wicket, were now staring down the barrel of a long morning in the field. A tough chance dropped by Mark Smith there at mid-off, arguably the best looking bloke on the field. I'm sure he catches plenty of birds, but couldn't catch the ball on this occasion. Cornforth would bring up his half century with his 4th 6 of the innings, the youngster looking nearly embarrassed as he raised his bat for his first half century at the G. Well batted young man. His innings would come to an end in stunning fashion, skipper Tony Emerson picking up the big wicket of Cornforth, thanks largely to a brilliant catch from Mike from MOSH. Of course, it took an Aussie ring in to get the business done for the Barmy Army. Cornforth gone for a brilliant 60. That would bring Peter Fowler to the crease, and he sought about continuing on from the work that Cornforth had done prior, as he too began to hammer the Barmy Army to all parts of the WCG on his way to 20. A half chance gone begging there for the Barmy Army, which was the story of this innings. Fowler would hit 3 4s and 1 6 on his way to 20, with some brilliant attacking stroke play as he picked the gaps with ease. But his innings would come to an end after hitting Barmy Army spinner James Brown over the fence, and he would have been disappointed with so many runs on offer today. And that would bring Alex Stepien to the crease, and he too began his innings positively. A good bit of fielding there from the Barmy Army. Techers there, Fowsy. But the normal procession of long hops for the Barmy Army would continue soon enough, as Stepien began to feast on some ordinary bowling from the Barmy Army on his way to 16. Stepien advancing and hitting spinner James Brown through the covers for his 4th boundary. He would be dismissed with the very next ball. A brilliant bit of flight here from James Brown, beating Stepien all ends up, and Brown had his 2nd wicket for the match. Although let's be fair, there's a tad bit of Murley in that action. But that wicket would bring Daniel Arnold to the crease, and although this was a good bit of fielding on this occasion from the Barmy Army, who instantly would have regretted it here, the Barmy Army bowler, Arnold began to feast on the Barmy Army bowling himself, hitting 1 6 and 8 4s on his way to 39 as he ticked the WCG score well above 100. Arnold was a man in a hurry and made it look very easy at times as the Barmy Army began to swelter under the hot Aussie sun. The Barmy Army weren't helped with some more long hops, and it was nearly the spinner James Brown who picked up Daniel Arnold's wicket. A good delivery going right through the big man, so close yet so far away. Arnold would continue to bludgeon the Barmy Army bowling soon enough after that, as he took the score along to 4 for 144 and a big target looming. But he would be dismissed in controversial fashion. A full delivery from Mike from MOSH, a loud appeal here from the Barmy Army, and it could have been a bit of mercy shown here from the umpire, who fired Daniel Arnold. As you can see on the replay, there is not a chance you can give that out. But Arnold had to go for 39. Michael Mabry was the new batsman to the crease, and he would get a couple of boundaries away. He would make his way to 8 with some decent strokes, to be fair. But in what was to be a brilliant battle all day at the WCG, he was dismissed by his long-lost brother Adam Fowles. Clean bowl to become the 6th WCG wicket out today. Mabry walking back to the sheds having been clean bowled for 8. Dismissed by surely his long-lost brother. I mean, have a look at these two. The Barmy Army then would go through their best period of the match to date, dismissing Daniel Hancock, Todd Lavin and Troy Hayden cheaply to have the WCG boys 9 down. Mike from MOSH picking up his 4th wicket of the match. Yeah, and Aussie needed to do the business, shocked me. But that would bring Michael Johnson, the last man to the crease here for the WCG boys. And if the Barmy Army thought their misery was complete, Johnson had another thing coming. Johnson would hit 5 fours and 1 6 in his innings of 27, which rounded out a brilliant first innings for the WCG. Johnson definitely not the worst player to come in at number 10. Anything too short and too full would disappear to the boundary. But they would finally remove Johnson, with the WCG first innings coming to an end on 184. So the second highest ever team total at the WCG in a 2 innings match. The WCG bowled out for 184 after 35 overs. Riley Cornforth top scoring with 60. Daniel Arnold with 39. And Mike from MOSH picking up figures of 4 for 19 for the Barmy Army. It was now their turn with the blade. It was the youngster James Brown who would be charged with the responsibilities of opening up the innings, but after surviving some hostile opening overs from the WCG, Brown would ultimately be dismissed for a duck, and the Barmy Army innings got off to the worst possible start. Mike from MOSH would also perish for a duck, hitting this one over the fence, and before you knew it, the Barmy Army were in big trouble in their reply. 2 for 4 in the 5th over. The next man to the crease didn't last much longer. A brilliant catch there at short cover by Michael Johnson, removing him for 1, and the Barmy Army slipped further into the mire. He's unlucky there, he smoked that, but you don't hit him to Johnson and survive. Steve Smith, no, not that Steve Smith, but this Steve Smith would be the next wicket to go, and the Barmy Army were 4 for shit. The 5th batsman to the crease would have the honour of hitting the first boundary of the innings. Not a great bit of fielding there from Daniel Arnold, and Troy Hayden was less than impressed. But he wouldn't last much longer after that. He became the 5th Barmy Army wicket to fall, Johnson picking up the wicket on this occasion. But that brought the best looking bloke to the crease here for the Barmy Army. Mark Smith would get a few away to the boundary. Hancock 1, letting Hancock 2 down on this occasion, and his brother let him know about it. Smith would hit a 4 and 2 6s on his way to 17, as the young Hancocks were having a nightmare day in the field, this time Nathan dropping a soda and pushing it over the boundary for a maximum. Some short bowling from the WCG aided Smith on his way to the highest score so far for the Barmy Army, but it was Peter Fowler who was proving to have a day out here for the WCG, who would remove Smith for a well-made 17. It was bang bang for the WCG, as Michael Johnson will pick up his 2nd catch for the innings, and Maybury picked up his 2nd wicket. That would bring Aaron Woodward to the crease, and he went bang in his short whirlwind innings. El Bashir coming in for treatment in particular, as Woodward would move along to 16 with 2 6s and 1 4 to give the Barmy Army some joy. But Troy Hayden would pick up his 1st wicket of the match, as Woodward hit this over the fence, and Woodward became the 8th wicket to fall with the score on 50. Young Adam Fowles was the next man to the crease, and he too began his innings positively, hitting 2 6s and 4 singles on his way to 16 himself, before being skittled neck and crop by a brilliant Daniel Hancock delivery, which took the top of off stump. And when the skipper Tony Emerson became the 10th wicket to fall, hitting this one over the fence, the Barmy Army misery was complete. So the Barmy Army dismissed for 71 in their first innings, and it could have been a hell of a lot worse if not for some late order hitting, which made up more than half their total. Mark Smith top scoring for the Soap Dodgers, making 17, with Peter Fowler and Michael Maybury picking up 2 wickets each. Enforced to follow on? Nah, fuck it, let's bury him. So as we entered the 2nd innings, the Barmy Army knew they had a mountain to climb, but their spirits would be lifted as they removed the first innings hero Riley Cornforth for a duck. Adam Fowles cleaning up Cornforth in the 2nd over, and the Barmy Army were up. Todd Lavin would come to the crease and begin his innings with quite an exquisite sweep shot. Yes, that's correct, that's Todd Lavin playing that shot. That is a beauty. Lavin would hit 1-4 and 1-6 on his way to 11, but his innings would end after spooning a catch to Steve Smith. No, not that Steve Smith, that Steve Smith. Rabiel Basher would come to the crease for his first hit of the day, and he would get away with a maximum, and apparently he was also umpiring too. But he would be deceived by another bit of brilliant flight here from the spinner James Brown, and his innings would come to an end on 6. Daniel Hancock was the next man to the crease, and he too began his innings positively, going bang 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 on his way to 12, and he looked set to continue the Barmy Army misery. But he would be strangled down the leg side, picked up by Mark Smith. The WCG would slump to 4 for 34 in their second innings. But that wicket would bring Peter Fowler to the crease, and in what proved to be his day at the WCG, began to bludgeon the Barmy Army bowling to all parts of the arena once again. Fowler would hit 4 sixes and 5 fours on his way to a brilliantly made 45 to ram home the advantage for the WCG. The Barmy Army cause wasn't helped by some poor fielding, as Mark Smith on this occasion would drop a dolly. The Barmy Army would rue that missed opportunity, as Fowler began to really get going after that, Mark Smith immediately regretting the drop catch after getting hammered in his over. Fowler would lift the WCG lead towards that 200 mark with a brilliant display of attacking batting as he moved along to his highest score ever at the WCG and looked impressive on his way there. However, with a maiden half-century within his sights, went for one big shot too many, unfortunately hitting this one over the fence, and he had to go for a well-made 45. Troy Hayden would come to the crease and get a boundary away, but his stay at the crease was short-lived. Mike from MOSH picking up his 5th wicket of the match, knocking over Hayden for 4. Step in would go 2 balls later in the very same over, and Mike from MOSH, an Aussie, had 6 for the match. Hancock would also go cheaply as he became Fowler's 3rd wicket of the innings, but Maybury would again get a couple of clean hits away to the boundary, on this occasion hammering a full toss from James Brown for a maximum, and getting Mike from MOSH away for a boundary on his way to 10. He then became the 3rd WCG batsman to be dismissed over the fence. Michael Johnson again came to the crease, the last man in, and was nearly dismissed with the very first delivery, but he would again begin to bludgeon the Barmy Army attack to all parts of the arena, hitting 4 fours and a 6 on his way to 22 to drive the nail into the Barmy Army coffin. The lead surpassing the 200 mark, and the Barmy Army was staring down a record chase at the WCG. Another half chance gone begging there for the Barmy Army, but Johnson would become the 4th player to be dismissed over the fence here in this WCG second innings, as they were bowled out for 121. So a better effort with the ball for the Barmy Army on this occasion, but the WCG still managed to post a pretty handy second innings total of 121, which would set the Barmy Army a mammoth chase of 235 for victory. Peter Fowler top scoring with 45, Adam Fowler's the pick of the bowlers with 3 for 6, and it's a colossal effort required here for the Barmy Army. So as we entered the 4th inning of the match, the question was, could the Barmy Army create history at the WCG? Like fuck they could. The Barmy Army opener was dismissed with the very first ball of the innings. There was some conjecture as to whether this had actually hit the automatic wiki. As we'll see in the replay, this was comfortably inside, and the decision would stand, and the Barmy Army were 1 for none in the opening over. However, some generosity from the Aussies allowed him to go back to the middle. However, he should have just kept fucking walking, because in the very next over, there was no doubt about this one. He's gone for a duck. Woodward would pick up where he left off in the first innings, hammering Riley Cornforth down the ground for a maximum, as the Poms began to find their voice. But with the very next delivery, Cornforth would knock over Woodward, and the Poms were in early shit once again. Woodward could not repeat his first innings heroics on this occasion, knocked over for 6, and after copping some banter from the Barmy Army, Cornforth would politely tell him to shut the fuck up. To be fair, this was arguably the shot of the innings, a brilliant straight drive there from their 3rd batsman, but he wouldn't last long. Pete Fowler, the chief destroyer once again, and have a bit of those ones, he says. Steve Smith would be the next man to the crease. No, not that Steve Smith, this Steve Smith. But he would be dismissed for a pair in the match, as he became Fowler's 2nd wicket of the innings, as Pete Fowler says, have a bit more of these ones. Maybury and Fowles would continue their battle here in this match. Fowles getting one to the boundary on this occasion, thanks to some poor WCG fielding. And Adam Fowles had scored the moral victory on this occasion. However, his joy would be short-lived. He would spoon a Maybury full toss straight to Rabi al-Basha, and Maybury had extracted his revenge on his long-lost brother, heading up the other end and letting him know about it, as Maybury would give more fuel to the haters on YouTube. Like, come on, can we be honest? These two have been separated at birth, and they just could not get enough of each other. Anyway, let's get back to the cricket. Mark Smith could not repeat his first innings heroics, this time dismissed for a quacker, as too was James Brown, who was dismissed for a pair for the test match. And in a continuation of the Pete Fowler show, he could seemingly do no wrong, this time a direct hit run out, and the misery was nearly complete for the Barmy Army. Mike from MOSH would come to the crease and continue his stellar match, hitting 2 4s and 1 6 on his way to 14, and was the only man to get into double figures for the Barmy Army, and shocked me it took an Aussie to do so. But when Mike from MOSH was dismissed going for one big hit too many, WCG were just 1 wicket away from a massive victory, as the skipper Tony Emerson trudged to the crease with the hopes of a nation upon him. But unfortunately for the skipper, the task was just too great for him, and he was dismissed for a pair in the match to seemingly end the contest. But the Barmy Army would be handed a lifeline. Local hero Matt White switching allegiances for the day, and was the last hope for the Barmy Army. He looked to be dismissed first delivery, as the WCG boys all went up in unison, but it looked a good decision from the umpire, as this looked to flick his leg on the way through. White would manage to get a boundary away on his way to 6. However, the match officially ended as he hit Rabi al-Basha over the fence, and the Barmy Army's fate was officially sealed. So in what was a fantastic day of cricket, WCG was ultimately far too strong for the Barmy Army. It must be said that their strongest side could not be here today. Most of them have already flown home with their tails between their legs, but it officially became 5-0 for Australia as the WCG romped home to a 193-run victory. So some pleasantries after the match ended, the two skippers trading jerseys, and then it was time for the barbecue, as the Poms got treated to some Lakman Tum, some of Southwest Sydney's finest cuisine on offer, and the Poms loved it. Plenty of this going on in London these days, but probably not in Bondi. And then it was time to do what we know best. It was time to have a proper drink. The Aussies and the Poms in unison, taking a shoey each. No, isn't that cute? The beers would continue long into the arvo and long into the evening, and it would all become far too much for some. Ultimately, a great day of cricket at the WCG. Thank you to MOSH and thank you to the Sydney Barmy Army. This is something we must do again.